Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Alicia Lyons, and I've been unpacking the Mom Guilt Toolbox for you over the last couple of videos. And in the first videos, we talked about being generous with your self-love, your time, and something else. um, and in this last video, we talked about understanding. So understanding that our children choose us as their parents. And so in this video, we're going to talk about understanding that each child should be treated differently. So what I mean by that, first, I'm going to disclose that I only have one child. So I don't have the experience of having more than one and treating them differently. But I have the experience from the child's point of view. So I have a stepsister who's about 8 years older than me. And when she was around 16, she was given a phone in her room. And this was in the early 90s, before call waiting, before, multiple phone lines in the house. And so she would spend hours and hours, like teenage girls do, on her phone. And so when I was 16 and I wanted a phone in my room, my dad told me no because of his experience with my stepsister. And so as a kid, that really, I really didn't appreciate that because I hadn't done anything wrong. I was a rule follower. And I love my stepsister, so this isn't a bashing her kind of a video, of course, but it was a decision that at the time really led to a pretty disempowering belief of mine that it doesn't really matter how I act because I'm going to get punished for other people's behavior. So when one way that I have explained like treating your children differently, like it's really important. If you have one child who's older and gets to stay up until 8 and one child who has to go to 7:30, like you can, if you just explain like your body at 4 years old, you need more sleep than your brother who's 6 and gets to stay up a little bit later. In the situation with my dad and my stepsister, my dad could have given me the opportunity to prove that I wasn't going to do what my stepsister did, that I was my own person and that I knew how to give myself phone time limits. Like that would have been a really empowering lesson that I could prove. And then if I had spent, hours and hours on the phone, then take that away. Another thing is like there was call waiting at the time. One thing that he did eventually let me do was he let me pay for my own phone line. So I had my own phone number that I paid for and everything. So with my son, I love to explain to him why I have a rule. And he loves to ask. He's very curious with why I do things. And I let him do so because it's really important to let our kids ask why. Because sometimes you'll find that you're repeating behavior that your parents did and you have no idea why that was a rule. And so I think it's more empowering for our kids if they understand why a rule is a rule, or help to co-create what the rules are. My boyfriend's mom has agreements with my son, so she doesn't have rules in the house. She has agreements. So I think that's another empowering way that you can talk with your kids, so that we can get out of this because I said so mentality. Typically when we say because I said so, it's because we don't have any other explanation, or we don't want to take the time to explain it. So I hope that you have found this helpful. The other thing that that I talk about quite a lot is the love languages. And you should absolutely treat your children equally, but not the same. And I think that there's a big misunderstanding about equality and sameness. Like, those are different words, and they have different meanings. Your children can be treated equally and be treated differently. So, especially with how you love on them, I love talking about the love languages because of how powerful that was for me when I realized two things: that my dad and I were speaking different love languages as I was growing up, and that my son and I were speaking different love languages. And if you're not familiar with the love languages, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And I would absolutely encourage you to check that out. I think I mentioned it in another one of, or in one of the generosity videos. But asking your child about how they feel the most loved by you. Like, what is it that you do that helps you to feel, or helps them feel more loved by you? And then do that more. Do that to the capacity that they can take it. So again, I hope that this has been helpful for you. And I will see you on the next video, where I talk about part 3 of understanding.